Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Vic. My usual videos are about travel, interesting places and virtual city tours. However, today I would like to talk about the situation in Ukraine, speaking as a Ukrainian. As you all may know, Russia has invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February and started its full-scale, brutal and despicable war. Last 5 months have been simply the most difficult time in the life of any Ukrainian, and it hurts me a lot to speak about this. But the amount of lies and stories that Russia came up with about Ukraine are simply absurd. Hiding behind fake narratives and continuing its aggressive propaganda, Russia is destroying people's lives, people's future. I'm a Ukrainian who speaks Russian language from birth. In fact, I'm bilingual in both Ukrainian and Russian languages, like also are my friends, my family, my past colleagues, and even most people in Ukraine. Also, historically, most people in Ukraine have had relatives and friends living in Russia and vice versa. So I can assure you that neither Russian language or Russian people have never ever been suppressed in Ukraine. Moreover, there are no Nazis in Ukraine. Far-right minority groups that exist in every country on this earth have never had any political or any other influential power in Ukraine. It's just that Putin's regime labeled all Ukrainians who don't want to partner with Russia nationalists. Like any other country on this earth, Ukraine, of course, also had some inner problems. But those were our own problems, our own issues to solve out by ourselves within our country. I can only say one thing for sure. In Ukraine, we always had freedom of speech, freedom of journalism, and freedom to choose. I have been living abroad for about 12 years now. However, I still have family and friends who live in Ukraine. Kyiv is my home city, so you can imagine I follow the situation in Ukraine very, very closely. What is happening in Ukraine now seemed simply unimaginable and unthinkable, but it happened, and the life of any Ukrainian, doesn't matter if they live abroad or in Ukraine, will never be the same again. The last time when I visited Ukraine, it was at the end of the last year. I stayed in Kyiv for about 1.5 months, from October to the end of November 2021. People who had a chance to visit Ukraine would know that Kyiv is a history-rich but modern, cool and a hip city. Being the capital and the cultural center of Ukraine, Kyiv was always happening. There was always something going on. Music festivals, international conferences, art and film festivals, various concerts and other cool events, you name it. There are lots of cool cafes, modern co-working spaces, trendy boutiques, delicious restaurants, and an amazing cocktail bar scene. And even techno parties that could compete with Berlin. Visiting Ukraine and coming back to my home city was always so much fun. I have seen how Kyiv changed over the years for the best, and of course I was always leaving my home city full of warm memories. I had truly an amazing time visiting Ukraine last year and catching up with my family and friends. And it hurts me a lot to see a peaceful country being located in the wrong place to suffer like this right now. Russia is literally killing the civilian population of Ukraine, ordinary people, children, as we speak right now. Including the recent bombing of a shopping center in Kremenchuk, Russian high-precision missiles have hit and destroyed 7 large shopping malls in Ukraine. As we all know, shopping malls are the places where usually mothers with children go and not the military personnel. If you noticed, Russia is bombing shopping centers in the middle of the day, because inside them there will be people for sure. And when it comes to the residential buildings, Russia is bombing them in the very, very early hours of the morning, because inside them will be people again for sure. That's why it's clear by now that this war is also a genocide. Over the past few months, it seems that the whole world have realized that Ukraine is not Russia. We are simply not the same. As the whole world saw Russia's attack on Ukraine unfold, it became clear that Ukrainians are very brave, very strong and extremely freedom-loving people. The most important thing to know is that Ukraine is an ancient independent nation with a really complex history and rich culture spanning more than 1,000 years. Ukrainians are inherently very kind, very friendly and very hospitable people. But when it comes to protecting their culture, their land, their nation, they will stand to the last. Also, it's important to remember that Ukraine's biggest weapon is the truth. You have to understand, Ukraine and Russia will not reconcile. Firstly, it's not a conflict. It's Russia's war against Ukraine. Secondly, Russia's cruelty cannot be forgiven. There are no acceptable justifications for killing and abuse of thousands of civilians, including children. And lastly, to reconcile, you need remorse. As it's clear by now, most Russians have no regret about their soldiers' actions in Ukraine. Also, it's important to know that history goes round and round. This war has not been going on for 5 months or 8 years if you include Donbass. This war has lasted hundreds of years as Moscow tried to conquer and destroy Ukraine and its culture dozens of times. Russia's war in Ukraine today is a continuation of its centuries-long imperialism. Ukraine didn't start this war, so there must be no calls on Ukraine to reconcile or surrender. According to the census done in 2001, approximately 30% of the population in Ukraine spoke Russian language in their daily lives. As such, there were no repression of Russian language or Russian people in Ukraine before the war. However, it's important to understand why Ukrainians know and many of us speak Russian language. Through the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries, Russian Empire has been eradicating all manifestations of Ukrainian language. Teaching, science, and even religious services in Ukrainian language were banned. Ukrainian schools and universities had to switch to Russian language as a language of education. This is how the Russification happened. On top of that, during USSR times, people and their families were allocated and sent to work to various regions of USSR. That's why nowadays you can find Russian-speaking people all over European and even Asian continents, in Baltic countries, Moldova, Georgia, Kazakhstan, and so on. For almost 5 months now, Russia has been erasing Ukrainian cities and villages from the face of the earth. Russian army is engaging in looting, stealing valuables from the dead, robbing apartments and shops. Moreover, Russian army is doing the lowest. They are torturing and raping women, teenagers, and even children. On top of that, Russia has been destroying grain and wheat stock of Ukraine, and even recently burning the Ukrainian fields with new crops. Generations of Ukrainians will not forget what is happening right now and will not forgive it to Russians. More and more Ukrainians who spoke Russian language in their everyday lives are already switching to Ukrainian language. And it's not because our government or media tells us to do so. It's just because people don't want to have anything in common with murderers. These 5 months have been simply the most difficult times in the life of any Ukrainian. However, it's also a defining time for Europe to show where it stands and which values it protects and promotes. It's very important to keep talking about the situation in Ukraine and help the world to hear the truth, so that powerful governments can make necessary moves and step up their aid. Ukraine is literally defending European border from Russia. That's why it's important to arm Ukraine well as soon as possible. I would like to ask you to keep helping Ukraine in this very difficult situation in whichever way you can. Unfortunately, courtesy of Russia, the war is not even nearly over. The good thing, you don't even have to have money to keep helping Ukraine. Continue staying informed about the current situation, spread the truth on social media, or even go to peaceful protests in the center of your cities. If you are able to donate money, you can help Ukrainian army for buying protective gear, you can help children's hospitals or any other Ukrainian hospitals with buying necessary medications. Also, you can help refugees in your countries by hosting them in your house for some time or helping them to find housing. I will leave the links on where and how you can help Ukraine and support Ukrainian people in the description under this video. If you are from Russia and you are watching this video, I would like to think that you are one of those who have something human left inside you. That Kremlin's propaganda didn't get to your brain, that you are doing everything possible to fight the regime and they are not following the lead of the herd who is turning the blind eye to this truth. And finally, I would like to finish this video with a saying. I'm not sure who wrote it, so apologies for not citing the source, but here it is. When you are able to feel pain, you are alive. When you are able to feel somebody else's pain, you are human. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you in advance for any help and support.